Hey guys, and welcome back to the Final Sun channel. As always, I'm glad to have you guys here. We got some interesting topics I want to discuss today, so it's going to be a little bit different than in the normal video. Instead of analyzing things, we're going to talk about what we think are the best ways to make this game long lasting so that we can get some of the fan base back to it and more players playing it once again. It's had a little bit of a decline recently, but the devs are working hard on this, and I hope they are listening to us so that we can get some of these updates in soon and get everyone back to playing the game. Before we dive down too much into this video, you're doing me a huge favor if you like and subscribe. If you go down there and you see the big red letters where it says subscribe, you'll see a nice little surprise after you click it, and you'll see how much cooler it looks when it actually says subscribed instead. Make sure to turn on notifications as well, that way you know each time I post a video, and you guys can see the content that comes out regularly in order to help you progress in the game. I think the first thing that needs to be addressed in this video is actually the end game content. I think this is the area where it's really lacking the most and could have the biggest room for improvement. If we think about it, there's a lot of early stuff you can do. You have the war zones, you can start the Avengers initiative right from the get-go. If that's not your pace, you can go do the story. There's a pretty good story with the game where you can get some major artifacts as well. But after you do all that, what are you striving to do? I guess the answer to that right now would be get exotic gear. But there aren't really a whole lot of ways to do that. It's really only the Elite Heroic Hive and the Mega Hive. The Mega Hive you can only do once a week, and the Elite Heroic Hive, if you just do that same mission over and over and over, it's really going to drag you down and test your patience on whether you want this game to be a single mode grind or if you want a little bit of variety in what you're doing. I think there are several modes that they could include that really would encourage players to come back daily or to come back weekly and work on their factions, work on their resources, their gear, and just have more modes to play with their friends. Here in just a little bit, I'll provide some suggestions that I think will be good end game content if it's taken seriously, and some other things I think they are adding into the game that will end up being end game content. But right now, I think it needs to be a big focus for the game. I think that something else that could really use some improvement is the variety of villains that they include in the game. I know that we're still early in the game, and that might give a little bit of leeway here in this, but honestly, I think they should have added a lot more bosses starting out. If you think about it, there's only 4 real bosses you can fight on a consistent basis. The helicopter, the spider mech, and then also Taskmaster and Abomination. If you look at the villain roster for Marvel as a whole, Avengers enemies alone, there are a ton. If you pick out Marvel villains, there are hundreds and thousands of villains you can pick from. But here, we only actually have 2 villains from the Marvel Universe we picked out to put into this entire game as a villain sector. I was hoping doing the iconic missions that there would be a villain for each character at the end, but it seems that the only real one in an iconic mission was actually Abomination. And it was really fun. I did really enjoy it. I just think it could have been capitalized on more. Here's just a few of the villains I think they could actually include in the game that wouldn't be too hard to include. You can get Baron Zemo as a Captain America villain, Bullseye as just a generic villain to throw in there. I mean, he's not too hard to create. He's not too far off from Taskmaster, but he would just be mostly ranged based. You could also add in there Loki. They already teased about him in the iconic missions for Thor. I know he'll probably come up eventually, but why tease at him like that when there's only 2 villains you can actually fight right now? I think a good Iron Man villain could have possibly been Whiplash. We already have him in Iron Man 2, so people are at least aware of who he is. He uses an arc reactor and different energy based melee whips. He'd be a good matchup for a team to go in and fight him. It's just some missed opportunities I hope we can expound upon here in the near future. Now then, this one might be a little controversial just because, but I think they need to add more multiplayer into the game. And now I know you're thinking, wait, hold up. Most of this game is multiplayer. You can even do a lot of the story multiplayer. But what do I mean by multiplayer? are all the hard grinds in the game right now are single player. Both the Mega Hive and the Elite Heroic Hive are single player modes, and they're the only real way to get exotics. That's a killer right there. For a game that's supposed to be so heavily multiplayer focused, it really takes the two modes that you actually need to play the most and makes them single player. Don't get me wrong, it's still enjoyable, and when you do the other multiplayer villain sectors, drop zones, war zones, they're still really fun. But if the focus is multiplayer, I think we really should make that the focus. Let's find more ways to get you and your friends into the same match, playing together to grind out that gear. No one wants to play these games alone if you're able to use your teamwork with your friends. So there were a few different game modes I juggled between talking about that I think would be fun for this. We already know that raids should be coming soon. We haven't been given a definite date, but I'm hoping it's before we get Kate Bishop at the end of the month. I just think it would be more beneficial to add a game mode other than a different character if they're trying to keep this game going. I think Kate Bishop will bring back some people, but I do think the game mode would help more. But what I ended up landing on that I thought would be a fun one to include that could be either single player or multiplayer are Titan battles. Now what I mean by a Titan battle is this could be similar to like a raid boss in a multiplayer game. It's a big boss that might have different levels to him. So, I mean something like going to fight Galactus, you end up having to fight his different heralds before you fight him, but it's just one big boss battle where you go from one level of the boss to the next. Basically a set of different forms for the same boss. I guess MODOK is the closest thing they have to it right now, but he's only in the story and you can't actually fight him in the multiplayer mode. So if they could include something like Galactus as a Titan boss and then give you so much currency for completing and beating him once a week or once a day that you could go and either use to like level up your factions or get some gear or a whole new shop altogether, I think that would really put them several steps in the right direction to give you another fun mode you can do weekly or daily to keep players engaged. So let's all be honest here. I think we all have gotten a little annoyed at getting gear that has some really good perks on them, but some terrible stats. Or some great stats, but some terrible perks. I think if they were to introduce a crafting system where you could keep some of this legendary gear and put it on your exotics, or keep some epic gear and put those skills on your legendary by breaking them down and using some resources, I think it would give us a long way into getting better builds for our characters. Right now, the grind to get the gear you want is borderline impossible and based on a lot of luck. Yeah, I mean, sure, you can grind it out enough that you'll probably get what you want kind of eventually, but the variation right now is kind of a killer, and I think a crafting system could do a lot. Not to mention, if you're like me, you have a ton of resources. Other than your upgrade modules and your polychorons, everything else is just in abundance. You will never use it all. So give us something we can actually do with it. Make sure we have a way to get the gear we want and make it more of a resources grind than a gear grind. And then give us different modes in the game where we can focus on getting a different kind of material. Maybe that Titan mode I talked about in the past. Trading that currency for some materials. Just something to think about. The last issue I'm going to talk about is something the developers are taking very seriously. The glitches in the game. We saw that first patch that they dropped in there. It was either ending in 2 or 3, where they really went after all the glitches in the game, addressing almost 1,000 different issues. And they've made a lot of steps to fix these issues, but they are still so prevalent in the game that it has to be mentioned. I think some aspects are kind of funny to see when you see a character glitching out cosmetically, but when you're doing a Mega Hive and you are almost at the end of it, or an Elite Heroic Hive, and there is a character who has spawned outside of the room so you're not able to kill him, and you can't progress, and even if you restart that particular set on the mission, he still doesn't spawn in the room. It makes you so angry knowing that you have to do the entire thing over. If you're a character who has a big AoE attack, I recommend using Darkhold and quickly recharging your abilities, maybe getting it off twice to kill whoever's on the other side of the door. But if you don't, and you're playing as someone like Captain America who's not going to be able to hit them through that door, you're just out of luck. Not only that, but there are some builds for characters in the game like Iron Man right now with his rocket and his emote system where people are taking advantage of being able to shoot rockets basically like a Gatling gun, where it just makes him so broken that he can drain villains so quickly. Then I think that's something they need to take a look at as well. I'll make a video here soon showing why I think that Iron Man is completely broken in the game and that he needs to be nerfed or at least patched to fix these glitches so he's on level with everyone else. But that's just one issue that I think is representative of all the glitches that are currently there. If they could tackle a lot more of these, then I think it would be a lot more smooth sailing for all the people who are still continuing to stay in the game. That's about it for our discussion today. As always, thank you guys for watching my video and supporting my channel. If you did like it, if it helped you out, or you agree with what I said, drop me a like and a subscribe. It would mean a ton to show your support like that. If you have any questions about it, or you have any comments, or you think there was a bigger issue that I didn't address in this video, drop it down there in the comments. I'll get back to you guys and see if I can research it as well. As always, I appreciate you all being here. I hope you all have a good rest of your day, and I'll see you guys next time a video comes out.